Hey, design friends, this is Cindy Allen, editor-in-chief of Interior Design, and today we are celebrating the 16th year of the Shaw Contract Design Awards. Yep, 16 amazing years. It's become a serious global design competition, and today we're going to talk to our good friends at Shaw, two of the judges. We're going to get the inside scoop and see some of the winning projects. And it all starts now. I want to introduce my friends that have joined today. With me is Todd Jarvis. He's the Global Marketing Director at Shaw Contract. He's out of Atlanta. How are you, Todd?
Doing great. Good to see you, Cindy.
And we have two judges. Christine Craik. She's the Associate of Interior Design at Cashin Architecture from Vancouver, Canada. Yes, Canada is in the house. Hi, Christine.
Hello.
And Brad Robichaud. He's a Senior Interior Designer at Stantec, and they're out of Texas. Hi, Brad. Nice to see you again.
Hi, Cindy.
Looking at the winners, I was pretty excited. It seemed like a very good year, Todd, huh?
It was fantastic. And, you know, Cindy, looking back on the Design Awards this year, I was really struck with how emblematic of our mantra of people together, planet forever in this year's Design Awards. We've got these four ambitions around material health, circular economy, diversity, equity, inclusion, and carbon impact. And again, I was just struck with how each of those ambitions were really represented in the Design Awards.
So it's been 16 years. And, you know, I always say, like, sometimes like a good idea, after it's become successful, it always seems like has existed forever, right? Because it's such a good idea. But the truth of the matter is, it starts small and it gets nurtured, it gets developed, it gets bigger, and then it becomes like a thing, right? So Todd, just give us one little story about the growth of these awards. Let us see what it looked like when it started.
This has really grown over the last 10 years into such a global program. It was primarily a US award program to begin with, and then little by little we started to get more submissions from around the world, and now this year we had over 700 projects from 37 different countries around the globe. And the final winners, we had with 5 countries represented and 4 different continents, so really a diverse group of finalists.
Amazing, amazing. And you know, when I see a strong group of winners, I also think about the jury, because you need to have the right jury, honestly, and they need to be very seasoned, have a deep knowledge of what's happening in design, and also an openness to seeing the whole, not just their own view of it. And it's clear that you had a very strong team this year. Tell us, so we're going to talk to Christine and Brad, of course, but tell us who else was participating.
Well, we had 24 judges from 10 different countries judging from the original projects where we look at it from a market segment standpoint. So the diversity of thought there was just amazing. That's one thing that's really impressed me, is kind of being a fly on the wall in all these sessions, is how much the interior designers are willing to listen to each other and sometimes even change their opinions after hearing someone talk about why they love a particular project. We had the final judging. We actually had 5 judges, and Christine and Brad are joining us. Because of time zones, it's really difficult to include the rest of the world, unfortunately, but I did want to give a shout out to Shu Himatsu from System O Design Consulting in Tokyo, and James Kong from Infinity Design and Engineering in Shanghai, and Noorshafina Ibrahim from Kuala Lumpur with Scala Design Consulting.
Fantastic. Yes, thank you. Thank you all. I know there are a lot of entries and I know it gets complicated and complex, and just having everyone honestly get along and have good energy to get to really honor some amazing winners. So thank you all. Okay, so we have to get to Christine and Brad. First of all, is this your first time judging the awards?
It is.
Yeah.
It is for me as well. Yes.
Oh,
Yes. First
And,
time.
and how did you find the experience?
It was a great experience, not just being able to see all of the projects and experience design from so many different angles and through so many different pairs of eyes, but being able to talk to all the judges worldwide and hear their perspectives. And the projects this year were amazing. It was very, very difficult to narrow it down. Brad, do you feel the same?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I mirror that exact sentiment. It was a bit overwhelming at first, to be honest. I mean, there was such a robust and impressive body of work created by these firms. And so, confronted with the task of narrowing down into finalists and to the final winners, it was definitely a difficult task, but it was actually a lot of fun because, coming from a curious mindset, I love kind of getting inside the brains of other designers and getting to know kind of, and from a geographical region, right? What is kind of the current trend for them versus the US and Tokyo and Shanghai? I mean, it was just really fascinating, even just to talk to them even.
That's great. So, we're going to start, we'll go through the winners. Now, I want you to put your thinking caps on and try to remember some of the inner conversation, or when there was maybe a little bit of, I don't know, a disagreement maybe, but where you got to a good end, okay? But I have to say that I appreciate anybody who's on a jury. We're in the middle of judging our best of year awards. And for me, the thing you want the most is to have amazing projects. And that makes it so much harder. So when I hear you, it's heartbreaking. Like, I always say everyone's a winner, but it's not always the case. Okay, so let's get started. So the first winning project, in no particular order, is ABN Group HQ Workplace Fit Out by our good friends Woods Bagot. And this was under large workplace. And this was in Perth, Australia, which, by the way, I lived there a gazillion years ago. So Christine, tell us why you love the project.
Well, this one I read very carefully the narrative that went with it, and something that I really pulled out was just the concept of where together everyone achieves more. And so to me, that I feel like this interior really embodies a sense of family, a sense of togetherness. It offers a lot of opportunities for prospect and refuge. There's places where you can see and be seen, and then other nooks and crannies where you can interact with your teammates and have those quiet conversations. It's done in such a beautiful way, in that a lot of the shapes and the lines are repeated in very subtle ways throughout the whole project, but it doesn't feel repetitive. You have a lot of color and you have a lot of texture. Every space has its own feel, its own character, and yet it fits very, very nicely into the whole. I appreciated in particular the use of the sphere, the use of the softened edged squares throughout the space, and even some of the verticality and the repetitive lines that were used throughout. And I just felt it was very, very strong.
Sometimes, and look, this idea of the curve, which I find very sculptural and very artistic, is definitely a trend these days that we're seeing. But this didn't feel trendy, right? It felt like very sophisticated, very handsome, like it will wear really well. Don't you think so, Brad?
Absolutely. I mean, I think one of the comments that it was kind of timeless, right? It was soft and timeless is some of the comments that came up in our conversations.
Fantastic. So a great kickoff from around the world, at the other side of the world, a very long plane trip, I must say, to Perth, but congrats to Woods Bagot, who are good friends of the magazine too, by the way. Okay, we've got the second one, also large workplace, is Leidos Global Headquarters by Gensler. And they're a 50-year-old brand, and the word Leidos is clipped from the word kaleidoscope, which served as the inspiration. I know you really like this one, Brad.
I do. I mean, I love a good story, right? Who
Yeah.
doesn't? And I think interior design and design in general should really, really tell a really cohesive story and bring the brand to the forefront. Initially, when we were working through these projects, we initially kind of skipped over some of this because compared to some of the others, this was very busy, right? There was just a lot to take in. But once we started to dig into it, we really started to discover quite a bit. And then it became a lot of fun to really look through the photos and kind of see the sequence of moving around the space. And then once we kind of took in that kaleidoscope concept, it really started to pull us in, and it really started to spawn a lot of interesting conversation. Because as you work through some of the photos, you can start to see some of the shapes that look rectangular. As you start to change your perspective, it's a completely
like a kaleidoscope.
Like a kaleidoscope, right? It's a completely different view. But it took us multiple times to look through the photos to really place ourselves in that space. And then once you really place yourself in there, I think that's a really successful project when you can really start to experience through photography.
Yeah,
It is.
yeah, it's true.
It's a beautifully layered and complex design, but because the color palette is so tight, that's what helped to rein it in. And like Brad was saying, at first we thought, oh, there's so much going on here, but really there's not. It's done in a way that is surprisingly subtle, in that they just had the one strong purple color throughout, mixed with a lot of the natural elements, the plants, and those kinds of textures as well, which really softened it and made it feel more residential, almost made it feel homey. In this context of kaleidoscope, which was so strong. Brad and I spent a lot of time looking through these pictures, and oh, look at that one, and oh, look at that line of light. So it was great. There's a lot to digest here, and a lot of thought put into this project.
Super. Todd, I'm going to go to you on the third, which is the Park Royal Collection Marina Bay by FDAT Architects in Singapore. This was like a one-of-a-kind garden in a hotel, and I understand you were there before the renovation.
Yeah, this one was really special for me because I've stayed in this property multiple times and didn't realize until I looked a little closer that it was that property. I actually hired somebody in the lobby of that hotel, but looked completely different than when I stayed there, and really looking forward to getting back there and staying in this beautiful spot. But one thing that really struck me, this hotel was built in the 80s, and actually two of our projects in the final winners are projects that were older than 40 years. So you think about that from a sustainability standpoint, and here we are just a short time after COP26 in Glasgow and the climate conference. You think about the carbon impact and the circular economy impact if those buildings had been demolished and put up new buildings, as opposed to resurrecting them with great interior design. So I think that's really exciting.
This was one of those projects that was impossible not to be like wowed by, right, Christine?
Absolutely. The nest features, the use of metals and woods, and even the stone features. For me, this was one of my favorite projects. I just found that the tension between the paradox between the big stone vertical elements and the strong detailing in the floor, mixed with these wildly organic and beautiful structures that just drew you in. And it was stunning. And how they used the landscape elements and the plantings themselves as a design feature, not just as an afterthought kind of plunked into planters. It really is a big part of it. The types of plants that were put into the space and their textures, beautifully done. Yeah.
Yeah, that it reminds me of how nature is part of our lives in a completely different way these days. And you just said it. Remember the old days when you'd have a project and then you'd like take the orchid and put it on the reception desk or something. I don't know, for the picture. I don't know. Those days are gone, everybody. Thank goodness. Gorgeous project. I'm so glad it is being honored. Okay, I'm going to you next, Brad, for the School of Rock, Dominicos, and it's a music academy. It's designed by EGBARQ, and it's in the education category, and this is in Chile. Santiago, Chile. So tell us why you love this project so much.
So my background for the last 10 years has been in education design, doing K through 12 and higher ed projects. And so this really resonated with me because, one, it's a unique project type, right? It's a unique program, but it's incredibly engaging without being overstimulating, which is a really difficult thing to do in education design. It's true to the theme. It makes you want to be creative in this space. But I think they implemented a lot of really great detailing that you don't really notice at first glance. And one of the things that I mentioned during our judging process was because there's so many rich colors and saturation of materials, they kept the floor plane relatively neutral. But not only that, they utilized this really clever lighting detail in the base of that corrugated metal wall facade. And what it does is it really creates the contrast between the ultra textured wall and that very neutral floor. So it almost creates like this instant relief for your eyes to kind of rest. And then once we started digging into it a little bit more, the plan is incredibly simple. It is such a simple plan, but the project is so dynamic. And for me, I think it was just really successful.
Are you going to talk about the containers?
The containers are great. I mean, I think containers are one of those things that, copy and paste. They've been utilized in every project, in every project type you can think of. However, it really became less of a unit, like an object. And they really used it in strategic ways to make it look like a wall finish, right? That corrugated metal wall finish, rather than just entering into a small container object.
That's what I liked. That's what I liked, when you looked like a real hallway. It didn't necessarily look like these object. I kind of liked, and I don't know if I'm seeing all the images, but I kind of like that you think of spaces where they're making music sometimes as sort of like dark, quiet places, but then you go into these rooms and there's all these windows and all this light coming in. I really love that contrast. Yeah,
I agree. And the graphic design on this project was amazing. I think they did such a great job of implementing, graphic design in this project with all of that texture, right? Because this project could have just gone wild in so many ways, but I think they used such constraint in kind of the organization of the project. That
I love that you said that, because seeing a project where you could kind of feel it could go wrong, but it went really right. So big kudos to them. Okay, so number 5. By the way, all the names are hard. So I'm like, sorry, everybody, they're long and hard. So number 5 is Sumitomo Mitsu DS Asset Management Company Limited by Signal Inc. And this category was medium, for the medium workplace, so mid workplace. And this was in Minato City in Tokyo. And the inspiration was the Japanese house and the garden, which is a big inspiration these days, this sort of residential, like, are you at home or are you at work, right, Christine?
Yeah, I felt it was a very timely design, coming back to the traditional Japanese home and the Japanese garden. It's timely in that we're all working from home or going into the office intermittently. We're trying to figure out this hybrid workspace and how this is going to work, and how do we make our employees feel at home and feel comfortable in the workplace. And this was just so beautifully done, from the way the furniture layouts were put together, that they're centered in the room, from the beautiful ceiling details with plantings suspended in the air. But it was done in a way that very, very clear focal points in each space. I think everyone appreciated as well, just the layering of light and the texturing of light in these spaces in unexpected ways, whether it's coming from, a little crack in the wall, a little line of LED just peeking out from between 2 beautiful pieces of wood, or, highlighting a ceiling, or, near the floor or in the garden itself. And Yeah, very, very nicely done, very creative. Yeah.
I mean, what's not to love about Japanese design?
I
Like,
know, right? I
minimalism.
know. Todd, I want to pull you into this a little bit. What was it like? Because you must have been very excited. Look, post, it's not post COVID, but like post the most serious part, like you're in the middle of this and you don't really know what to expect. You don't know what kind of projects are going to come in. You don't know what's finished, what's been photographed. Like this was a tough one. And then to see this work sort of like kind of rise up, it was, I don't know, I was very, very excited seeing the projects.
Yeah, and this is the second year where we've done the design awards completely virtually, and we don't know what next year is going to hold. We hope that it can come back to some kind of a hybrid of face-to-face, as well as we love that we can have more judges participate with the virtual aspect of it. So we don't know exactly what it's going to look like next year or what our world's going to look like. But one thing that really caught me on the last project, and Brad and Christine, you may remember, Shu from Japan made a comment. There was a shot of a conference room, and there was absolutely no technology in the room. There were no outlets. There were no, and he talked about the human aspect of it. It was just to meet face to face and to be able to talk as humans. And as much as we've enjoyed, doing this virtually, really excited about the opportunity for that human face to face interaction that we'll hopefully get into in 22.
And if there's anything we've learned, and I know we think like this too, is that like because we've missed a lot of, in-person events, and certainly we miss everybody. And then, but this is what's come out of it. Like now you have a different kind of juror that may well always be someone who's doing it virtually while you still have the in person. So that's exciting. That's exciting. And just the way that everyone's like kind of adapted. And what came out of it, great projects, great winners, great conversation. Exciting. So I want to thank you guys for that. Okay. All right. So now we're up to People's Choice. And the winner is also in Japan, and it's called The Campus by Kikuyu Company Limited. And it's under Large Workplace. And it's an experimental site for the future of work.
It would be a great and fun place to work, looking at the photos, and the People's Choice is chosen on our website. It's open for everyone to vote, and this project received over 4 times more votes than the next closest finisher. So there was really a lot of great support for this project in Tokyo.
Brad, did you guys also were you guys in conversation about this project?
We did, yeah. I mean, we had a lot of conversation about pretty much every project that was submitted. But what I think is really interesting and intriguing is that, the 4 or 5 judges that were, selecting these final projects, the mindset was different than. I love seeing what the greater audience thinks about these projects. I mean, I just think that's so intriguing. And looking at this project again, it's definitely one that we were discussed pretty heavily. And I think what stood out for me was there was so many choices of space. Right. There was the outdoor community space, but even internally, there were so many different options to kind of choose your own place. There were kind of shadier, darker, more intimate spaces. There were some that were a little bit more active and activated and engaging. And there were some that were just kind of felt like you're in, a Zen garden, a playground, a retail space. I mean, it was almost like every sector wrapped into one cohesive project.
Is this a co-working space?
Live work.
I believe so.
Yeah. And Christine, let me ask you something about this. Why do you think it was, how would you frame this as like, why, online, it was the project that people responded to versus judges who dig into every project, who study the narrative, look at all the pictures, look at it from every viewpoint. This one was just like a clear winner for the people.
We talked a lot about this project in particular, and mostly just because of the concept. You have a public that are coming into the workplace. They have public areas on the ground floor where people are, coming in and out. So you're bringing the community into your workplace, and people who are living there, people who are working there, eating there, their whole lives are centered around this campus. And it really is. I think we've had a year and a half we've had a lot of isolation. We've had a lot of people stuck at home, a lot of people working from home and only seeing other people on a Zoom screen. And the idea of being a part of a community again, I think really speaks to a lot of people. It speaks to me. And, and the way it was designed, like Brad had mentioned about having lots of options, these spaces are so flexible, and you can just see how much longevity this project would have, over time. Spaces can change. They can become this, they can become that, become whatever the community needs it to be. And having flexibility in architecture and interior design is everything right now. Yeah.
Well, bravo to the people. Todd, I want to ask you, sort of as we close, when you see a global perspective of what's happening in design, and then you look at Shaw and you say this actually is representing what's happening within us as well, right? Give us a little recap of what you're most proud of.
I think the diversity of the projects is really something to be proud of, and how this has grown, as we said, around the globe, so many countries represented, and it's a big initiative for us. I think we've had some of the US jurors in the past didn't realize we were a global company, and just hopeful that opens eyes, that if people are working on projects in other parts of the world, we're able to serve them anywhere they want to go.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Okay, I want to ask Brad and Christine. Okay, so you're judging, right? But you're also designers, you're working on projects. What thing were you a little jealous about that you were like, oh, I want to do that, or I want to have the opportunity to do that in my next project, or I don't know, give me one little tidbit.
Oh gosh, Brad. First.
Well, specifically one, the one that was kind of biophilia gone wild. It was like the sheer budget, right? The budgets to be able to produce something so comfortable and so natural, where you could just put yourself, just looking at a photograph, put yourself in the space, almost hear the air conditioner as a breathe, right? The birds in the cage, like the auditory, the tactile, it's such an experience. So some of these we were like, that was an amazing budget. That is like the dream budget, right? But with other regions comes different restrictions, right? That we're, different levels of elevation within a space that, sometimes in the US and North America, we're not, we're kind of held to a more stricter standard for accessibility, of course. So
I love that. No, but that's so honest, because, I hear that about projects overseas all the time from American firms. Are like, we would never be able to do that project here. Mm-hmm. So that was a really good answer. Christine, what's something that kind of inspired you?
Well, for me, I loved, especially with the international projects, just the liberal use of space. There were a lot of, I think in North America in particular, we focus a lot on efficiency of space. Every square foot must have a purpose. And some of the projects, especially in Japan, just had this looseness of space and this beautiful negative space that we commented a few times actually on the juror panel. Just it would be so nice to just have this width of corridor or this height of space that really seems unnecessary, seems like it wouldn't be used, but it has a purpose. It just the way it feels and the way it must help people to interact and just create these interesting interactions between people. Yeah, I guess the use of space, like being able to have more square footage to work.
I get it.
Yes, and creating
I totally get
talent,
it.
Right? The negative space, positive space, and
Yeah, because that is the thing that I love hearing that from you guys, because it is honest. You're working on your projects and like, oh my God, that's amazing. I wish we had some of that or had that space or that opportunity. But thank you for your care and your thoughtfulness to these projects. We all know what it takes to get it accomplished, to get it finished, and So really having judges who really care makes all the difference in the world. And Todd, I want to thank you for this kind of commitment from Shaw. 16 years in the making. Now it really is a thing, like a big thing. And just so I don't forget, Todd, tell everyone how they could, if they want to go online to look at all the winners. What do they do?
Sure, just come to shawcontract.com and click on the design navigation, and you'll see a bunch of information there under design awards. And I do want to leave one quick word from Fina from Malaysia. Talked about, thank you for making design fun again. It was kind of, they remembered, oh, this is why we're in this. This is why it's such a fun profession. So
I love that. It's the perfect note to close. Thank you all. I can't wait to see them all. Really, we won't probably see them all in person, but we'll see them online. And then I can't wait for number 17. It's around the corner, Todd. You better start working on it already.
Already started.
Exactly. Okay. Thank you all so much. Big hug to all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you to Shaw Contract.